I'd like to offer Bud Amendment number 12 to Senate Bill 567. It would amend Section 106 to add a new section to provide for damages against unions for violations of unfair labor practices. I want to start by thanking Senator Bud for offering this amendment. It preserves the balance of the National Labor's Relation Act, while the PRO Act ignores that unions commit unfair labor practices in the course of representative activities. This amendment places similar fines and penalties for union unfair labor practices as employers.
Okay, thank you, Senator Marshall. I oppose Senator Budd's amendment. Unions don't fire workers, their employers do. If a union works with an employer to cause a worker to be illegally fired, current law already makes the union responsible for that violation. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment at the appropriate time. Any more discussion? If not, additional amendments.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer Bud Amendment number 13. This would prohibit a union organizer from using threats or violence to intimidate a worker during a union organizing campaign. Again, we want to thank Senator Bud for this amendment. Tolerating violence and hate speech as just a part of union organizing is fundamentally wrong. When seated before the committee, 3 of the nation's largest union presidents refused to condemn malicious taunting from the union picket line. In 2021, a leader of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 98, was indicted for threats of violence and economic harm after he threatened a worker at a Philadelphia construction site. This individual was convicted of bribery and extortion from a 116-count indictment. Since the board continues to undermine the safety of workers from union violence in a workplace and on the picket line, this amendment should be adopted.
Thank you, Senator Marshall. I oppose Senator Budd's amendment. No one here, of course, supports violence in the workplace or anyplace else, but that is not what this amendment is really about. This amendment is about making it harder for workers who are illegally fired to get reinstatement. It's about making it harder for unions to protect and fight for workers. This amendment is clearly designed to undermine the entire bill. I urge my colleagues to vote no on the amendment at the appropriate time.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make a little addendum here. I need to clarify that these remarks are on behalf of, should be associated with Senator Budd and not myself.
Got it. Thank you. Senator Marshall, do you have other amendments?
Let me see.
I think you have 2 more.
Okay. How about Budd Amendment 14? This one would permit an employer to pay greater wages or compensation that is provided for in the collective bargaining agreement. Again, thank Senator Budd for introducing this amendment and associate these remarks with him. In an economy where a lot of workers are sitting on the sidelines, this amendment could attract many of them back to work. The National Labor Relations Act prevents workers from receiving bonuses or merit pay increases without the blessing of a union leadership. To prevent an employee who's working hard from receiving a merit-based wage increase is simply unfair, and we ask for adoption of this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Marshall. I oppose Senator Budd's amendment. This amendment would undermine the rights of workers to collectively bargain for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. Let's be clear, union workers make on average nearly 20% more than non-union colleagues, and that's why we need the PRO Act so more workers can get fair wages and benefits. This amendment is a poison pill clearly designed to undermine the entire bill. I urge my colleagues at the appropriate point to vote no on it.
Next, I'd like to offer Budd Amendment number 15. This requires the Department of Labor Secretary to certify that the PRO Act will not have an adverse effect on the employment rates of those with disabilities. Again, these are remarks associated from Senator Budd, and we thank you for offering this amendment. As the previous amendments highlight, we need to be aware of unintended consequences of the PRO Act. Workers with disabilities are an important and vital part of the workforce that must be protected. The PRO Act would eliminate state right-to-work laws, which have been shown to correlate with higher employment rates and labor force participation rates. Unfortunately, those with disabilities are often most severely impacted, with employers slow down hiring. Employers have stated that the PRO Act will destroy jobs. The PRO Act should not go in effect until the Secretary of Labor can certify that it will not have an adverse effect on the employment rates of those with disabilities. Again, we ask for adoption of this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Marshall. I oppose Senator Budd's amendment. This amendment would unnecessarily delay the implementation of this bill. Today we are voting on a bill to protect workers' rights to organize, to make sure that workplaces are safe and fair for every worker, including workers with disabilities. This amendment is a poison pill that is designed to undermine the bill. I urge my colleagues at the appropriate time to vote no on this amendment. All right, I think that is, Senator Marshall, is that?
I want to ask unanimous consent for a couple, if that's okay?
Yes.
So on behalf of Senator Cassidy, ranking member, we would like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record letters from 50 business groups, 46 oppose Senate Bill 728, the Paycheck Fairness Act, 46 oppose Senate Bill 1664, the Healthy Families Act, 50 oppose Senate Bill 567, the Richard L. Trumka Protecting the Rights to Organize Act of 2023.
Without objection. And I would ask unanimous consent to enter the record 14 letters of support for the 3 bills that we are discussing today. 78 organizations who endorsed the PRO Act, 151 organizations who endorsed the Healthy Families Act, and 109 organizations who endorsed the Paycheck Fairness Act. Without objection, so ordered. Okay, I think we can now get to, we got something like 40 amendments, and I think we're ready to get going. You have proxy rights on your side. Let's get going. I note the presence of a quorum, and we'll now move to votes. We will take votes in the order that we considered the bills and their amendments. We will begin with amendments to S728, the Paycheck Fairness Act. The first vote is on the Cassidy Amendment 1 to S728. Clerk will call the roll. And clerk, if we can move this thing as quickly as possible, we'd appreciate it.